Check out the Full Press Hockey Podcast with Jim Biringer, the best in the business. It's going to be great.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Full Press NHL Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Biringer, the voice of Full Press Hockey. I am back with a good friend of mine, great colleague, Rob Simpson. Check him out. Vancouver Hockey Insider, Seattle Hockey Insider. He's all over the Pacific Northwest. And there's some big news out of Vancouver. But first of all, Rob, welcome back.
Thanks, Jimmy, baby. Always a pleasure. And it's been a little wacky and wild out here, especially in the Vancouver market.
Yeah, it has been definitely up in Vancouver. The soap opera, the drama, could have put it on a TV screen, made it a series, mini-series. I mean, it was like the Arizona Coyotes in the building situation. It was a never-ending story, but the story ends with JT Miller getting traded to the New York Rangers. That's where he was drafted. Back to the Rangers, Phil Peterlin, Victor Mancini, a protected first-round pick, which they end up flipping for Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. Vancouver making some moves here before the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. And obviously, first of all, JT Miller. So nice for you guys because I think it adds a spark to the Rangers and makes it even more fun to play the Devils. Not that it's never not interesting, but I think they're going to be a motivated hockey club. I just did a piece in Vancouver on VancouverHockeyInsider.com yesterday about reuniting with Vinny Trocheck because those two were the 1-2 centers. Back in 2013, they won a gold medal in Ufa, Russia, World Juniors for Team USA, which back then that was a rare moment, and it was a loaded team. Unfortunately, Johnny Gaudreau, who's since obviously tragically passed, was on that club. Seth Jones. I mean, you can go through the list. But anyway, these two guys grew up playing for the Pittsburgh Hornets youth program, and I'm talking about Trocheck and Miller, and were best friends then. Kind of went their separate ways for a bit, and then were on that team that was coached by Phil Housley, and they took it home. They brought home the gold medal. That would be their greatest accomplishment in hockey for both of them. That's the biggest moment in terms of championships. So now they get an opportunity to go for a Stanley Cup, and then, of course, starting in about a week and a half or so, they'll get a chance to go for Team USA. They're both on the Team USA roster for the Four Nations face-off. I think it really adds a spark. JT's scored 2 goals and 2 assists in 2 games thus far. They're 1-1 with him in the lineup. I think it'll stabilize. It makes them very, very strong. They're super strong up the middle. They can move Zibanejad to his wing, which they've done with Panarin. I think it's going to be interesting to watch what happens there. Flip side, Vancouver loses the trade. No question about it. They had to get rid of him. You wonder what it does to the room. He was very close to Tyler Myers. You have to remember there were kind of factions here. So, Petey's still there. Pettersson's still there. He's tight with Quinn Hughes, who, by the way, has been out of the lineup last game and is expected to miss the game against Colorado here. They're in deep doo-doo without him. The other Pettersson comes in. He's already on the penalty killing unit. O'Connor, whatever. Heedle's no JT Miller. So Vancouver had to get rid of him. And they get rid of $8 million cap hit for 5 more years, and they keep a $11.6 million cap hit for the next 7. That's kind of not by accident, because who wants a non-producing Petey for 11.6? And he's tough situation. It's just been shaken up. And then they moved Danton Heinen in the other deal. And so much going on there, but no question the Rangers are the winner. And JT Miller's the winner. It's funny. I mentioned in maybe an earlier piece when they beat Nashville the other night. So on social media, the Canucks have a camera in the locker room, and that shows the guys coming in off after the win, and they're all passing the assistant coaches and the trainers and stuff, and they're giving them the 50s on each side like this. I think there's like 4 or 5 guys. They fist pump. JT's like the 8th or 9th guy, and he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever. He just kind of throws up one hand and walks by, kind of, yeah. And I'm like, this is just tick-tock, tick-tock, because I've been talking to his agent over the last 2-3 weeks, not really saying, hey, come on, let me know what happens first. Not garbage. But, they were shopping, and New York's a great location for him. So I'm rambling on, but that basically covers kind of the JT and the Pettersson fallout, because the Rangers come out ahead, and the Canucks come out with a different hockey team.
They do. No, they're a completely different hockey team, right? And look, I think the only way that this trade really works out for the Canucks is if they can sign Marcus Pettersson long term, even medium term, get him like at least a 4 or 5 year deal to be on that defense, because they want a top 4 defenseman. Yes, everybody's documented, everybody said it. Even when the president comes out and says it, yeah, we're not getting the return we want for these deals. Yeah, no kidding. No, Vancouver was never winning a JT Miller or an Elias Pettersson trade. But for me, I go back to it, and both these guys signed 8-year deals, but yet both had beef with each other. Like, why would you sign extensions if you know you don't like the other guy in the room?
Right. I think it accelerated. I think it went downhill this season. Something unfolded because JT leaving and missing 10 games for personal reasons. I mean, to our best of our knowledge, there doesn't seem to be anything residual that was affecting him. It wasn't some kind of, player assistance program type deal. And he never let on anything about going on with his family. I think he needed to step away from the hockey club. So, I mean, you're right. In a way, you wonder why sign on for that. But, guys can always be moved.
Yeah.
Pettersson, the other Pettersson, Marcus. By the way, there's another Elias Pettersson. The defenseman, I wrote about that on VancouverHockeyInsider.com too, just last week about the other I'm calling him PDD. He's actually pretty impressive in his 2 games. He got called up due to injuries and stuff. He was actually pretty good, but and referred back to the draft in Montreal in 2022 when they called his name. We're all like, what? There's another Elias Pettersson? So the Canucks have 2 Elias Petterssons, even though PDD is back in the minors, and then they have Marcus. Marcus is a good pickup. They needed to add some depth. Derek Forbort wasn't really the answer. Vinny Desharnais wasn't the answer. They had all of the size back there. Pettersson's no slouch, although he's lanky. They still have Tyler Myers, and Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek are a nice duo up top. So they actually got stronger along the blue line, which is nice. But the forward core is dramatically different.
No, absolutely. It is. It's completely different. And it seemed like they were trying to shop Pettersson. Miller's the one that gets moved. It seemed like they wanted to move Pettersson going back to last year. Even this year with Carolina, try to get Money Natchez in there. But Miller goes, and now you have to wonder what this team is going to look like, because now Carson Soucy's name's out there too on D. And it's like Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford just want to reshape this entire roster, but still remain competitive in a tough Western Conference. Yeah,
and I think all eyes are on Petey, though. I mean, they have to be, right? I mean, 11.6 for all that time, and he's not a guy it's not necessarily situational with this Miller thing. He's had droughts before, and he started a couple of seasons ago slowly. And of course, this market has the media. It's like, what's the matter with you? What's wrong with you? I think, are you okay? Is everything okay? Every day. And he's like, oh, F off. But he's had slumps before. And Miller's like, yeah, let's go. What's Petey doing in terms of reacting to this? You'd expect, if this was such a big deal, that boom, boom, out go the lights. Let's go, Petey. He's going to start cranking. It's not all on him, but he's obviously the player to watch here as we get going. Jake DeBrusk hasn't done diddly do. I think he had a 11-game streak. He just scored a couple of games ago, but he went 9 without a goal, 11 maybe without a goal, and 9 of those without a point. And so he's got basically 2-3 points over his last 12 or 13 games, Jake DeBrusk. Not good.
No.
Connor Garland, we love him this season. Kiefer Sherwood's been the pleasant surprise of the year, for sure. So there's been ups and downs. Forget the JT and the Petey thing. There's some other struggles going on.
And what about Brock Boeser? I mean, I know we talked about it earlier in the year when you were on the show about how, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. It doesn't seem like they're going to talk about contract during the season, want to let it play out. There's been, look, the Devils, we know, need goal scoring. Brock Boeser seems to be a name that they've been linked to, but that again, the Canucks need scoring too. And why move a guy like that off your team when other guys aren't producing?
He seems to have been impacted by all this. He's pointless in his last 3 games. He's like a -4 during that little stretch since this PD thing, or since the JT thing became a reality. He's a pretty expensive ticket at the moment, and that's a kind of a separate issue. Is do you unload the UFA prior to the trade deadline? Here's the dilemma. Here's kind of the catch. The Western Conference is so weak below the 2 teams presently competing for that second wildcard spot. Right now, it's a 2-team race: Calgary, Vancouver. I mean, Utah's kind of maybe the next closest. Anaheim, Seattle, San Jose, Chicago. I mean, forget it. None of these teams are scaring anybody. They basically have to beat the Calgary Flames to get in the playoffs right now. So as they get through this 4 nations break, they'll reevaluate, and then they have to decide, well, can we beat the Calgary Flames? Can we catch up to the Calgary Flames? They're a point behind, 2 points behind. They play them one more time head-to-head on March 12th. If they think they can, then how do they approach it in terms of making moves? If they think they can't, then probably Brock Boeser goes. I mean, he's having, last year he had 40 goals. This year he has 16 in 45 games. He has 33 points. So that's really the crux, is the fact the Western Conference is so piss poor in terms of depth in the standings that I don't want to say it makes the decision harder. It just makes it a little more, it actually kind of makes it easier, because to focus on Calgary. Avalanche are kind of running away a little bit with that first wild card spot. The Kings are, I guess, a factor in the 3rd position in the Pacific. They're only 3 points ahead of the Canucks, but they have 2 games in hand, and they're pretty consistent. So,
yeah, that's definitely a challenge for sure. And then one more before we switch over to Seattle real quick, because I know you have to get to the game. The goaltending, we talked about it off the top. At the beginning of the season, we were on talking about Thatcher Demko. That made the rounds. Kevin Lankinen's been a great story for this team, coming in there, signing right away. As this team goes as Thatcher Demko goes, and they need him to be a lot better than he's been if they want to make the playoffs. Am I wrong on that?
Well, only in that the way the season has unfolded, they're only as good as Kevin Lankinen goes.
Very true.
Because he has essentially been the savior. And I hate to keep saying this, but you keep hitting on points about stories that I just wrote in the last week on the 2 sites. So you're subliminally promoting VancouverHockeyInsider.com. But I did the whole Lankinen and Decord comparison, how they both saved these respective teams bacon. Not that the Kraken are going to make the playoffs, but I mean, if there's no Kevin Lankinen, forget about it. And hell of a move, by the way. People, I'm not sure if they realize he was on the free agent market, probably asking for a little bit too much. Nobody took him, and the Canucks snapped him up for under $1 million in September, and he has saved their bacon. So that was a very strong move, grabbing him. He's been outstanding this season.
He has been.
And I was just going to say, Demko had a good outing his last outing. So if they have both those guys going, you're in good shape.
Yeah, and Lankinen's earned himself a nice paycheck potentially in the summer, but either Vancouver or somebody else. You mentioned Seattle. They made the trade with the Rangers. They got Capo Caco. What an addition he's been to the Seattle Kraken. I know, they're competing for a playoff spot, probably not going to make the playoffs, but he looks like the guy that everybody thought he was going to be in 2019 now, playing in the right position, second line, being on the second line on the power play, producing, scoring goals. And it's kind of ironic Sunday that Filipino scored for Vancouver, Capo Caco scored for Seattle, and Alexis Lafreniere scored for the Rangers, all members of the kid line in New York. And you can think of what might have been if they were all on the second line in New York.
Yeah. I think to a different degree, obviously under a lot less stress. It was very stressful for him in New York because he's like, I want to play more. I need more ice time. I need more opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. It was kind of a, seesaw or a roller coaster ride for him. But similar to JT Miller, it was the change of scenery thing. JT's more forced, if you will. But yeah, Kakko needed something different. He needed a fresh start. He needed to be able to exhibit the talents that you just referred to. And yeah, he's enjoyed it. It's a breath of fresh air for him. It's a breath of fresh air for the franchise. One of all things being equal, one of just a few good moves by Ron Francis over the course of recent times. The other one, locking up Joey Daccord at a pretty good number for 5 years, because if he turns out to be all that and continues to play, again, no guarantee in goaltending. It can change quick. But if it does roll out the way they hope and expect, he'll probably be a pretty cheap goalie in a couple, 2, 3, 4 years. But yeah, Kakko's a big body. Like, I was shooting video at a morning skate the other day, and he was with his little Finnish buddy, Ellie Tolvanen, and just the size difference. He's a big body. So he'll go to the net. He wins puck battles in the corner. And he's got good hands for a big guy. So he's enjoying it. They're enjoying it. It was a good deal.
And then Will Borgen went the other way. He's been fantastic for the Rangers this year. Was that a tough loss for Seattle on the back end?
I wasn't necessarily overly impressed with him. It was a matter of kind of slotting him. It always just kind of seemed like he was basically a 5'6" when he was with Seattle. They've stuck with this kind of this core unit. Vince Dunn. Now, of course, they acquired Brandon Montour over the summer, and then Alexiak and Larson, Big Rig and Larson. It was Larson and Dunn, and then it became Dunn and Montour. I'd prefer to put Larson back with Dunn. And then at the bottom end, they've kind of filled things out. They got Josh Mahura, who's a UFA this season, and this younger guy also. Well, he's not that young anymore, Cale Fleury. It's a loss depth-wise, but all things considered, it was a bigger thing to let Justin Schultz, who's since retired after trying hockey in a couple of weeks in Switzerland in the fall. They had him in here and a couple other veteran players that had won cups, and they just kind of played out the string and were like, okay, see you later. So I think end of the day, they were dying for some production on the wing, and they really felt like they needed to do something, and Kakko was the result.
Yeah, no, it was a great pickup. I like the trade. I always felt that he was going to do well in Seattle. I just never got the opportunities, or if he did, just didn't take advantage of him, or they didn't give him enough time and runway with it in New York. And again, the pressure's kind of off in Seattle, but the pressure's kind of on the team too, and Ron Francis as well, because yeah, they make the playoffs in the second year. They get to the second round, but it's kind of been going backwards each of the year. And we even said at the beginning of the season when you came on and just did a Seattle Kraken video that they probably weren't going to make the playoffs. But if they don't make the playoffs again, is there really pressure on here, maybe by ownership, to make a change at the general manager position?
Yeah, that's the interesting question, because I believe there's a year left. Will they give him the full 5? He didn't get the full 5 in Carolina, never made the playoffs in the 4 years as the GM or the assistant prior to that. Didn't get that 5th year. They booted him. Do they keep him around and let him have that 5th year here? Or do they say, you know what, this is not acceptable? Me, I'm changing, personally. There's just too much baggage on the roster. Some of it was kind of the pressure of being an expansion team, and you make some of those signings, and you're kind of like, oh, God, because you're kind of desperate to find a goalie, Philip Grubauer, who's, guess what, waived in the minor leagues for $5.9 million per season. Good luck getting rid of that.
Nope.
So that's a buyout possibility. That ownership loves that. Andrei Burakovsky, 5.5. He's got a couple left. So, yeah, the Grubauer thing, it's tough. I think he played 31 and 30 games in back-to-back seasons as the number one $5.9 million guy. guy pulled his groin both years, and then this year, early season, hurt himself at home. So, yeah, he's out. So I don't know. I would see what he does at the trade deadline here, Ron. He's not exactly he's not like trader Jim Rutherford. He's made a couple deals this year, but he's not real active that way. So let's see what happens at the deadline. I think, by the way, if they do make a change, I would think it won't be before, but it might be after, because you want to have the new guy have an opportunity to see what he's got, address, evaluate a little bit as the thing winds down, and then have an opportunity to have the new guy be able to get to know the draft, the amateur scouting, all that good stuff, leading up to the draft and leading up to July 1st free agency.
That would make a lot of sense. And, Seattle, you mentioned it. They have some players that potentially could move. I think Oliver Bjorkstrand's one. Yanni Gourde was a guy, but he's hurt, and he may not be moving now, but he'll
be moving. He'll be moving because he's UFA.
Yeah, so he'll be moving.
If they can move him, they'll move him for a third or fourth rounder. And Brandon Tanev's another one. They could have got rid of Yanni Gourde in the summer, to be quite honest, and probably should have.
Yeah.
But you love your own guys.
Right.
And he's kind of a fan favorite, and so is Tanev. But you know what? Fan favorites will cost you Stanley Cup playoff trips and lose you your job. So, yeah, both those guys are 33 years old, turning 34 in December. They should be out the door at the trade deadline, if not earlier, for Gourde and Tanev. You would think so.
Yeah, you would think so. Same with Bjorkstrand, I would think. Maybe they move him out.
I think he's got a year. I'd have to check it. I don't remember, but he's been all right. I mean, he was an all-star form last year. It's, the chemistry, the lines have changed 1,000 times. The power play is not very good. PK's kind of a little under that. So there's work to be done. And as you pointed out, I said at the beginning of the season, they weren't going to make the playoffs. They're not going to. And now the pressure's on Ron Francis to be an effective decision maker. He's got to look to next season and beyond. There's a lot of work to do here.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. Seattle, some work to do. Vancouver. The guys in Vancouver are a little bit more aggressive than the guys in Seattle are. But Rob, I know you got to go to the game here Tuesday night against Detroit. Hope that goes well for you. Where can everybody catch your work?
Yeah, I'm boogieing down the highway. I'm in Vancouver right now. I got to go to Seattle for that game. Kraken hosting the Red Wings, who are a great story. VancouverHockeyInsider.com has all those stories that just happened to bring up. And then SeattleHockeyInsider.com, you can read about Joey Daccord a little bit and the loss the other night to the aforementioned Calgary Flames, which wasn't unexpected. Calgary's dominated Seattle in their head-to-heads, especially in the Seattle building. That was a 3-2 final a couple nights ago. But yeah, heading down to see the Red Wings and the Kraken. SeattleHockeyInsider.com.
Check it all out. The great Rob Simpson here on Full Press NHL Podcast. Guys, get it iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Up on Full Press Hockey on YouTube, Full Press NHL on Twitter as well. This has been Jim Biringer. Rob Simpson again joining the program. Guys, we'll be back again for another episode real soon. Take care.
Barry Trotz, Nashville Predators, making sure you're listening to Full Press Hockey Podcast.